But as long as we can separate people from their culture, there is profit to be made of, because when you separate somebody from their culture, then they get lost. They don't really have anywhere to go. We all want to attach to something. We all want to be close to something. And I think that's just, us as humans, right? We all want to be closely associated and to be proud of something, right? To be proud of ourselves, or to be proud of where we come from. We've turned culture into corporate holidays. Exactly. And that's to the benefit of corporations, to the benefit of the oligarchs, to the benefit of those that manipulate, the American ideology daily, right? Because if you can associate yourself more with whiteness, which is more of a corporate structure or corporate influence, like I joke about it, right? And like people are like, well, what is white culture? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like Applebee's and Buffalo Wild Wings, going to the amusement park or something like that, monster trucks in WWE, but all of that stuff is all corporate. Those are all corporations, those means of entertainment that you have to pay for. It's just capitalism. If you have like a culture that you can harken back to, right, and you can say, this is my culture, these songs, these dances, these holidays, these hobbies are from my culture. Odds are, on a lot of that stuff, capitalism has no grasp on it, or they don't have a full control on it, right? We have St. Patrick's Day, which everybody's like, oh yeah, my favorite Irish holiday is St. Patrick's Day, let's all go get wasted. Cinco de Mayo, let's all go get wasted. It's like how Ireland goes hard now for St. Patrick's Day because Americans did. Yeah, it's the same thing. But in Mexico, people don't really celebrate Cinco de Mayo. It's not really a thing. Not as much as we celebrate it here in the United States, because it's it's been corporatized. But I will never be white. You will never be white. Nobody. None of us.
My parents feel left out because
you gotta watch this.
I'm an Asian who tried to be white my whole life, and here's what I lost in the process. But before that, let me tell you how this all started. So I was at a party, and I'm having a conversation with two friends, John and Josh, about Vietnam. Just came back from their amazing place. Anyway, Josh is the definition of like whitewashed Asian. Like frat bro in college, barely speaks Viet, his native language, and like most of his friends, like he's very, very white. So I asked Josh, like, so you don't want to visit Vietnam at all? It's so lit. Josh's like, nah, screw that. It's just like family and stuff over there. And I don't even speak it well, man. I don't care, bro. Like,
every time I see a video of like somebody that's in Vietnam that's like they're visiting, it looks very cool.
I know, like I'm just trying to go to Cancun, bro. And then John comes in, and John's like a polar opposite. Hard to read guy, tattoos all over. I think like Vietnamese guys like tattoos, but he's like ultra religious, like righteous, successful, and he's like our go-to guy for advice. And John goes like, so why do you feel like you're a banana? And Josh goes like, I don't know, man. They just call me that, and I don't care, bro. I don't care about that. I ain't trying to be Viet, bro. I'm trying to find a white girl, okay? And John just goes like, so you're gonna pass on like Viet to your kid? And Josh goes like, nah, bro. I don't care. John goes like, what about your parents? Like I know your parents don't speak good English. Like how's your kid gonna communicate? And Josh goes, bro, it's fine. Like I don't really care, bro. I'll translate. And Josh, if you're watching this, by the way, bro, I love you, but we just don't see eye to eye on this. But in my head, I just thought like your mom and dad would probably really like to communicate with your son.
All East Asia is getting all the content farms lately. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of videos coming out like on YouTube where like people walk around and go to stores and all that stuff, restaurants and whatnot. I think one of the more viral ones is like the restaurants that are right next to like the railroad, like literally right on the railroad, and like the train flies through there. Well, not at a super high rate speed, but it's very cool. It looks very cool.
Son or your daughter, because I mean it's their grandkid. But even worse is you're gonna rob your kid the opportunity to have that relationship, to learn more about their culture and to understand their heritage, just because you don't care. And so to Josh, and everyone kind of like
this video is very important to me because it comes back to things that I've said about we all have cultural heritage that comes from somewhere because we are in the United States. One way or another, whether we're native or not native to the United States, through our ancestors and our families, through immigration. We all have a culture that we could harken back to. We can all say that, Mexican, Spaniards, natives, the Irish, Italians, everybody has an origin where their family has come from in the United States. And I think the idea of us separating ourselves from our origination and from our cultures is really what kind of gets a lot of people to associate themselves with like whiteness in the U.S. especially, and that collective ideology of, oh, I'm just a white person, and not recognizing where your family comes from, kind of it kind of like leads you into white supremacist ideology, because you no longer associate with the cultures that that your family has come from, right? We've turned culture into corporate holidays. Exactly. And that's to the benefit of corporations, to the benefit of the oligarchs, to the benefit of those that manipulate, the American ideology daily, right? Because if you can associate yourself more with whiteness, which is more of a corporate structure or corporate influence, like I joke about it, right? And like people are like, well, what is white culture? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like Applebee's and Buffalo Wild Wings, going to the amusement park or something like that, monster trucks in WWE, but all of that stuff is all corporate. Those are all corporations. Those are all, money pits. Those are all, means of entertainment that you have to pay for. So it's just capitalism. If you have like a culture that you can harken back to, right? And you can say, this is my culture, these songs, these dances, these holidays, these hobbies are from my culture. Odds are, on a lot of that stuff, capitalism has no grasp on it, or they don't have a full control on it, right? We have St. Patrick's Day, which everybody's like, oh yeah, my favorite Irish holiday is St. Patrick's Day. Let's all go get wasted. Cinco de Mayo. Let's all go get wasted. It's like how Ireland goes hard now for St. Patrick's Day because Americans did. Yeah, it's the same thing. But in Mexico, people don't really celebrate Cinco de Mayo. It's not really a thing. Not as much as we celebrate it here in the United States because it's it's been corporatized. But but as long as we can separate people from their culture, there is profit to be made of, because when you separate somebody from their culture, then they get lost. They don't really have anywhere to go, and they have we all want to attach to something. We all want to be close to something, and I think that's just us as humans, right? We all want to be closely associated and to be proud of something, right? To be proud of ourselves, or to be proud of where we come from. It feels like someone's wants to sell me something. Yeah. But I mean, we all hearken to something. We all want to be proud of, nobody wants to be ashamed, I guess. Maybe that's the better way to say it. Is nobody wants to feel shame when they talk about themselves or when they talk about their family, right? So and to me, I think that's where the professional sports come into play, because if you can say, oh, I'm from Pittsburgh or San Francisco or something, how about those 49ers? You can be proud of something, right? Be like, oh, they won the Super Bowl. It's just silly. It's silly, but it is, something that people can grasp onto if they don't believe that they have their own culture, or if they've never been closely associated with their own actual culture. It gives them something to attach to, people get lost in it. People get lost a lot in that finding something to attach themselves to. And the Allen the Allen Premium Outlets shooting that happened like 2 years ago now, not far from where I am in DFW. That happened. That guy was Mexican. He was Mexican American, and he believed heavily, from his social media, you could see that he leaned heavily into white supremacist, Nazi ideology. And you have to ask yourself, how does a Mexican American, like myself, who is also Mexican American, that grew up in the United States, end up like that? And that's what it is. It's people are embarrassed or uneducated to their culture. They're very separated from their culture. Nick Fuentes being another. Yeah, exactly. You get very separated from being from your culture, and you want something to be proud of, and people attach themselves to these things. That's why I think it's very important that everyone recognize where their cultures come from. And we have an issue in the United States, right? Where we had slavery for a long time, and a lot of people either got their original culture removed from them forcefully, or just erased. And I think that's where we get like American black culture, and why that's so important to the United States itself, because that is an original culture. But also, I believe that the white culture that we've generated in the United States is a response to that, right? Because that was forcefully removed. So in response to that being the culture of the United States, an original culture of the United States, white supremacy had to establish its foothold, and as it is, try to make itself the dominant culture, but it's not. And that's why you see it just kind of nobody really knows what white culture is in the U.S. Assimilation makes you feel shame. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, because everybody wants to be their own person, and there's a lot of cultures in the United States, and sometimes being Mexican, I see it, and people are people try to make fun of Mexicans, and there's all these stereotypes and these stigmas that people associate with cultures, that can be embarrassing. But if you're not educated on your culture and you only ever see the ridicule, then yeah, you'll be embarrassed. But if you go, for me, going to Mexico City and seeing Mexico firsthand, something besides the border towns that I always went to as a kid, that was really cool, because you get to see what Mexican culture was like there, and why a lot of history happened, because it's a very, very cool city to be in. I was well, yeah, of course the Spaniards wanted to come here and take over the place. The weather is it's 50 degrees in the morning and 80 degrees in the afternoon, every single day, because of the elevation. To say it was the Venice of the West, it's a very amazing city. It's very but some of us, previous to that, my only experience was with Mexico is to go to dusty border towns that some of my family's from, and it's okay, this is nice, but you don't really get to see the countryside. You don't really get to see further in. It's a lot more American influenced on that part. But also, people go to Cancun and stuff, and it's okay, well, that's okay, but that's also heavily American influenced. And it's just there's nothing really there to grasp yourself onto, but going to the canals and seeing temples and seeing even the churches that were built, the plaza, Mexico City Plaza, the downtown plaza, that all that stuff, man. That's just it's so cool to see that. Even the mansion that they have like on the castle in Mexico City, like that stuff was actually pretty cool to see. But you know, a lot of us don't get that education. We don't go to, you know, our home countries and, you know, ever get to see that stuff. We only get to see the Disney version of it, right? The corporate version. And, you know, and you don't get those details. But yeah, this is a very interesting video. Sorry, I've talked for like 10 minutes now.
I want to share kind of like the 5 dangers of losing your Asian identity and heritage. And these are thoughts that I wanted to share that night.
Yeah, losing your identity.
I'll be honest, it's hard
like, that's the other thing is like everybody wants to have an identity, right? I learned more about pre-Columbus from YouTube than school. Yeah, and school, like the what we get taught in school is so like whitewashed. Because, you know, they're not going to tell you about the evils and the bad things that happen. Sure, they'll mention some of the stuff. But, you know, they're not going to talk about, like, you know, Columbus cutting off kids' hands and, you know, wearing those, like...
Share when you're, like, a couple shots deep. Starting with, one is, you're never going to be white, and you're never going to be viewed as white. See, I was a complete banana growing up. I hated being Chinese. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I made sure always that my English was better. And I remember on my basketball team, I'd always trash on being Chinese. Like, they'd ask me about my culture, and I'd be like, oh, yo, bro, it's just some, like, stupid Chinese shit, man. Just whatever. You know what I mean? I'd always trash
my culture. This is what I was just saying. People being embarrassed of their own culture.
Language, hoping they'd accept
because they want to adapt to being white.
But no matter what, they always still viewed me as Chinese. And I know because they referred to me as like their Asian N-word, and they still always asked me about anything Asian. I wasn't accepted or really viewed as one of them. It always felt like I had to claw my way into their inside jokes, which I couldn't always relate to because I was Chinese. I wasn't cooler in their eyes for trashing my culture. I wasn't closer to them by trashing my culture, and I wasn't shaking off the fact that I'm Chinese by trashing my culture. Instead, I was just a weird Chinese guy who always trashed his culture. What I realized is that even if you speak perfect English, you adopt the perfect accent to fit in with the group, you're still always going to be viewed as who you really are, which is an Asian person. And there's like multiple studies and experiences proving this, right? They look at you based on your like visible racial features, no matter how much you try and assimilate into a different culture. And when I realized this and realized that
somehow fascism always whittles itself down to who's like the most of whatever class they're trying to get to.
You know, I'm never going to be white. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still going to have girls say like, yo, I don't like Asian guys, even if like I was at that time very far from your typical Asian guy. It really made me reflect on what is being a banana costed me. And by the way, if you don't know what banana is, banana basically means like yellow on the outside, white on the inside. You guys know who Chris Paul is? He's a black NBA player. I grew up really into basketball, and one story that always resonated with me was his story. In high school, Chris Paul's grandfather was murdered, rest in peace, at 61. Him and his grandpa, they were really, really close. His grandpa was, as he called, his best friend. And the day after the murder, Chris Paul scored 61 points. Which, by the way, if you don't play basketball, is a lot of freaking points. It was so many points so that he was actually 6 points away from the state record, but he intentionally missed a free throw and then asked to be subbed out of the game as soon as he hit 61.
6 points away from the state record for most points in a game. But as he walked to the foul line, that didn't matter. 61 did.
I walked to the free throw line. The referee gave me the ball and shot an air ball right out of there. And my coach took me out. I just looked at my dad and started crying.
It's like everything came out of him. He just walked over to me and gave me a hug, and he just fell in my arms, and that's when it just tore me up, you know.
He didn't want a point more than that. Why was that? Well, Chris Paul didn't score 61 to set a record. He scored 61 to honor his grandfather, a point for every year of his grandfather's life. It was a really beautiful moment for Chris and his dad, and you're probably wondering, what the hell does this story have to do with being a banana? As a kid, I remember hearing that story as I watched NBA, and I really resonate with that story. Not because I related, though, but it's because I didn't. Growing up, I never had that relationship with my parents, let alone my grandparents. They never watched one of my basketball games. In fact, they didn't even know that I liked basketball. And growing up as a kid, I always looked at white families and black families, you know, anyone who wasn't Asian, and I'd be like, why was there such an intimate, close relationship between children and parents and children and grandparents? And at the time, I just thought, you know, Asians are different, you know, but it's actually too easy of an answer. See, a lot of my friends from China have amazing relationship with their families. This is not like a Asians or strict parents problem, but this is actually more of a banana problem. Because if I really think about it, what did the white families, the black families, and the Chinese family from China have that I didn't have growing up? Well, Studies show that the ability to communicate in your native language strengthens family bonds. It makes a lot stronger emotional connections. So I guess communication is the biggest factor to connection, because half the time my grandparents spoke, I didn't understand. Anytime I wanted to express something beyond, I'm hungry, I couldn't. Because when my grandparents passed away, instead of wanting to dedicate a basketball game to them, I felt nothing. Like someone I barely knew passed away. And I remember watching my parents grieving and feeling bad. I felt bad that I didn't feel anything for someone who meant as much to my dad as my dad does to me. Let that sink in for a moment. Because being a banana does lead to happier family relationships, which actually leads me to my next point. Who's really impacted when the banana stays a banana? I mean, if the banana can barely speak their language, I mean, what are the odds their kid is going to be able to? And Josh, you're probably thinking like, screw it, I'll just throw them in Vietnam.
Yeah, I hear this a lot, like from people that are Hispanic or Mexican that don't speak Spanish, and it's like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of torn on it.
It'll be fine. But, I went to Chinese school. You went to Viet school. I could barely speak Chinese growing up. On top of that, our parents spoke to us in our native language. Your child's parents, you, are probably going to speak to them in English. So what really happens to the next generation of banana? The language and the culture dies. So what kind of relationship does a banana have with their grandparents? And who's impacted by that? How does it play out for the child of banana if they don't know how to communicate with their culture, with their grandparents, with your parents? And something I struggle with. I mean, my girlfriend speaks Mandarin. I mean, I speak Mandarin. And I know my kid is going to be able to speak Mandarin English, for sure. But how am I going to make sure my kid can speak Cantonese with my parents? And I get stressed thinking about it, to be honest, because that's like an absolute non-negotiable for me. Like, I'll move to freaking Hong Kong if I have to. And so that's what made me want to stop being banana. See, I want to do family vacations with my kid and my parents, and not make my parents feel left out because they're talking English. I don't want my kid to sit confused about what's happening when I speak to my parents in Cantonese, and I don't want my kid to grow up walled off from their culture, their heritage, and I mean their freaking family. Because that's what happens to the next generation of a banana. Because when I think about my parents and their journey, how they came to a new country and left behind everything for a better future, yet they made it a priority to preserve our culture, our traditions, and our language. They didn't have to, but I smile when I think about it. Every Chinese New Year where I'd say those magic 4 words, Kong Hei Fa Choi, and get those little red envelopes. Every time my sister and I would eat a mooncake, even though they never really tasted good. Every time my mom makes this random feng shui stuff, and we don't really know why. And even when I was an extreme Chinese hating banana, those are moments of my childhood that I'm really glad my parents made an effort to share with me, because those are moments from their childhood that meant a lot to them and that they felt were important enough to pass down to me. And the reason those traditions are still here today is because they're moments of Chinese culture and heritage that our people have deemed important enough.
It's kind of crazy to me that we haven't Americanized like Chinese culture to the point where we're doing like red envelopes. I mean, yes, there's like Chinese food, which is a staple of American food, or at least the American version of Chinese food, which is absolutely delicious. Like we have tried to adapt it as American culture, but the whole dragon thing, red envelopes, like everything that he was just talking about, not a lot of that has been adapted
to pass down for centuries. And so what happens when the banana chooses to stay a banana?
But also I think there's xenophobia.
Like, what's my banana kid gonna do? Like, go to my parents and say like Gong Hei Fat Choi in terrible Chinese? My parents' efforts, the efforts of every single person before them, generations of history and culture that makes us unique, that separates us.
We tried in the 80s and 90s film to varying regards,
right? And when I imagine my childhood without that, it doesn't feel right. And if I were to imagine taking away those from my kid, which I would be doing by staying a banana, I'd be robbing them of the opportunity to understand their heritage and their roots. I'd basically be disconnecting them from everything my parents fought to keep alive. To Josh specifically, have you ever met like a 5th generation Asian American? They all say the same thing.
Yeah, my parents didn't pass it down to me.
They always say that. You are a banana right now, and if you choose to stay that way, your kid's gonna end up the exact same.
Identity struggle, yeah.
From your culture, from your heritage, from the opportunities it can bring. I mean, we all know what happens, right? It's the reason why I said earlier, I realize I've never...
And that's what I was talking about, is, a lot of people in the United States that maybe classify themselves as white or have adopted to being classified as white, just have identity crisis. And, we, like I said, we all want to grasp onto something. And what is prevalent in the United States? White supremacist ideology.
White. Because what I found is that the more I tried to assimilate into a culture that wasn't mine, the less connected I felt to who I truly was. And I know from experience, there's this constant identity struggle between trying to fit into like a Western world and still feeling like an outsider. Feeling too whitewashed for the Asians, but too Asian for the Western world. And like I said, I mean, I'm never gonna be white. And I'd hate for my kid to feel trapped like that. If you've ever met like a 5th generation Asian American, like their like parents are Asian, their grandparents are Asian, you know, whatever, they always say the same thing. Yeah, no, my parents never taught me. Yeah, no, I mean, we've never like really done any of like the Chinese New Year stuff because like my family isn't like that Chinese. It's always awkward for them. Because for me, when I found that Asian side, that love for my culture, my identity, that's when I truly built a true sense of belonging. Like not just with my family, but with myself. When I finally stopped being a banana, when I made the decision to reconnect with my culture, my language, my family, everything started to change. My career opened up. I mean, I traveled to China and did a freaking speech this year. I've met childhood idols that I can only dream of meeting. And I have such a rich relationship with my family, with my parents now.
That's
I don't
wild.
feel like the Chinese guy in a room full of strangers anymore. I feel whole. I feel like myself. And let me tell you, once I fully embraced who I am, my perspective on the world and my place in it changed entirely. I started to realize that like being Chinese isn't a burden, it's a gift. The culture, the values, the community, it's a foundation that supports me every single day. And I absolutely love the way I can just connect with a random stranger immediately just because we're both Chinese. And on top of that, one of my favorite things to do now, remember when I was a kid, I would always like it's just some Chinese shit. No, like right now, my favorite thing to do is to share Chinese culture with people who have never experienced it. Like it brings me so much joy.
Free
And
Chinese
I just think, like, back
lesson.
to that kid in high school who like would see a Chinese restaurant and be like, nah, yo, it's just some Chinese shit. Let's get some burgers, man. I think back to that kid and I'm like, wow, like thank God I'm not that kid anymore. Because it's not just about me anymore. You know, it's about my future, my family, and passing down that legacy. And I care about making sure I give my future kid the opportunity to connect with my parents. And for me, that's priceless. And I'm not just speaking Mandarin and Cantonese for business, for travel. I'm speaking it because it connects me to my roots, to my family's story, and to the greater community I belong to. And that's what happens when the banana chooses to stop being a banana. See, before I was stuck between two worlds, but what I realized is that when you embrace your heritage, you no longer have to choose between two identities. You get to embrace both. And when I stopped being a banana, I didn't just gain fluency in a language, I gained a deeper connection to myself. I gained my family's respect and my own respect. And I started to understand that the more I embrace my culture, the more I find peace in who I am. And most importantly, I found my place in this world. You know, not as an outsider, not as someone trying to fit in, but as someone who's proud to be exactly who they are. So what I would tell my younger self, who was so anti-Asian, is
I've held off on watching like the majority of this video for a very long time. I've been trying to watch this video like on stream. I just keep running out of time. But this is really good.
I encourage you to think about what you're really missing out on. Think about the opportunity to connect with your heritage, your family, your values, and even your future. Once you stop rejecting your identity, that's when you start truly living. And it's so worth it. All right, that's it for today's video. You know, hope you enjoyed hearing my perspective and hope it was cool. Peace. 再见.
Very good video. But yeah, like I was saying, you know, we have this disassociation with you know, culture, and we try to adapt American culture, which is it's just capitalism, man. That's all it is. You know, capitalism with a different shade of color is what it is.